Hello and welcome to today's webinar on the NOA's Diploma in Strategic Outsourcing. Today we have Chris Howard, our Professional Development Director, who has been running the diploma for the past 6 years, to talk us through some of the commonly asked questions. So hello and welcome, Chris. Thank you for taking the time to talk us through this today.
Hello, Anya. Thanks very much for inviting me along.
So who studies towards the NOA Diploma?
Well, over the last 6 years that we've been running the program, we've had people from all sides of the outsourcing industry, people from the buy side, supply side, and also consultants as well. Typically, they are people who do have more experience in the outsourcing and shared services space. So they're in senior management or leadership positions. Private and public sector have also been represented on the various groups that we've had. So some of the job titles you can see on the slide in front of you.
Great. And what do you get from the NOA Diploma?
Well, I guess first and foremost, you get an advanced qualification in the professional practice of outsourcing. That's accredited by a UK university, and you get letters after your name that denote your expertise. So that's a very tangible output from the program. But what do you get from the process? Many people who are involved in outsourcing didn't choose to get into outsourcing. They have essentially made it up as they went along, learned how to do things by doing it. It's often a great way of doing it. But this is a way in which they can validate that knowledge, they can formalise the knowledge, and they can also move that knowledge on. They can develop their thinking, they can develop new insights and new approaches, and work with other people who are facing similar challenges. One last thing that I would say is that this is a way of learning and adding value at the same time. We use a work-based learning format. So that means that you take the day-to-day activities that you're working on and you translate that into your classroom, essentially. So you learn through doing. A very effective, very powerful way of doing things. But it does mean that, by definition, you're going to add value to your organisation as you go through the diploma programme. So people get an awful lot from it, and often we do see that people change their way of thinking in very important and fundamental ways.
And how does the NOA Diploma programme work?
Well, in simple terms, there are 3 modules, and each module requires the learners to submit a 4,000 to 5,000 word paper. So much of the work is done in their own time. We only require people to attend 3 one-day workshops over the 12-month period that the program runs over. So there's very little time that's off the job, as you might describe it. The first module, using the NOA's life cycle best practice model, is a review of sourcing practice. Modules 2 and 3 provide the learners with the opportunity to be able to focus in on topics that are most relevant to them and to their organisations. So there's a considerable amount of flexibility. How much time is required to be invested? It varies, depends on each individual learner, but not unusually between 10 and 15 hours per month might be something that would be a rule of thumb.
And what are the topics studied?
Because of its work-based learning nature, the topics that are specifically chosen are very much down to the individual learner to choose. We ask that the topics do align themselves with the list that you can see on the slide. And So they would need to choose to cover at least two of those broad subject areas. But you can see that the areas, they are very broad, and we haven't yet had anyone that finds it difficult to align their own particular work-based projects and activities with those requirements of the programme. So it's very much up to the individual. The types of things that people have covered in the past, well, a very wide range. Some people have looked at how to develop contracts which would underpin greater collaboration. Some people have looked particularly at the relationships between the parties and how they could be improved. Some people have looked in depth at establishing more effective governance of outsourcing arrangements. Some people have looked at the overall strategic decision to outsource. And others have looked at ways in which they can develop their approach as a supplier of outsourcing services to develop their own businesses. So very, very wide range of topics.
And what is the criteria at this level of study?
The level of study is postgraduate level, level 7 in the jargon, and we've included on this slide the criteria in formal terms. But when you read it, I think you will see that it really is describing a more senior role within an organisation. So we're expecting the papers that people submit would demonstrate that they are working within an environment that requires them to exercise broad autonomy and judgment, that within which they are taking responsibility for planning and developing courses of action. It's a context within which they are having to address problematic and highly complex challenges. So we're expecting that people will be able to show us through their papers that there is some real breadth and depth in the way that they are approaching the various challenges. And if, of course, you're in a certain senior position, then you will absolutely need to be demonstrating that you are working at that level. So it is often not a problem for people to actually do that.
Great. So how do I get started?
Well, this is the easy bit. So it is simply a matter of giving us a call, and we can send out the application form. The application form is only a one-pager, and it just captures some basic information. We don't expect that people need to have any prior qualifications. So although this is at postgraduate level, people sometimes describe it as post-experience level. So you don't need to have a university degree to undertake this program. If anybody does have any particular queries or questions and they want to arrange to speak to me, then I'm more than happy to do that. But it's a simple process to get onto the program. I would say, though, that they do tend to be quite popular programs, and we try to keep the groups quite small. So it is advisable to reserve a place as soon as you can. We look forward to hearing from people.
Great. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today, Chris.
Thanks for inviting me along.